Hello and welcome to what is going to be a sort of clarification of Project 3, which as you can tell from up at the top here is self-portrait. What we're going to do, I'm going to zoom in there a little bit, what we're going to do here, normally I wouldn't necessarily sort of read over something you can obviously read yourself, but I want to clarify and sort of as I do in my face-to-face classes, sort of go off on a tangent or two in sort of talking about what is required and what I expect for Project 3. Just so you know, Project 1 and 2 obviously sort of wrapping up tonight, meaning that October 6th your developed Project 2 images, your sort of final images are due. That's a lot of images for me to go over. I'm going to be grading Projects 1 and 2 this week, so you'll see comments. We'll sort of see where things are going good, where things are not going so good, and I want to get that information to you as soon as possible. So, in relation to where we're headed for Project 3, Project 3 is called Self-Portrait. So we're going to read over this. For this project, you are to create a group of images that constitutes a self-portrait. The images should contain a combination of objects and places that are relevant to your identity. No physical part of you should actually appear in the photographs. We're not taking selfies here. The collection of images should be telling, informative, personal, and unique to you. Please consider how these images work together as a group as opposed to how they look and feel individually when you choose what you are going to print. Print meaning making the slideshow or the export of the PDF. Now, what is different in this project is the idea, first of all, that you have an idea, okay, the self-portrait. Last week, and we can sort of quickly take a look here, I'm going to pop over. When you guys looked at, you should have looked at this guide to critique. We looked at these three elements, the technical, okay, the formal, and the conceptual. Okay, for the most part, all semester we've been working on technical things. How do you guys sort of use your camera? How do you expose with your camera? All the sort of backbones for the first two projects, color, shape, texture, line, these are all formal elements. Okay, you can read over these again. We haven't dealt with the conceptual. You guys dealt with that in critiquing or looking at the Ansel Adams stuff or him and Edward Burtynsky this past week, the sort of concept, what they were trying to say in those, and here we have what is the photographer trying to say or convey. Hopefully, you saw examples of Ansel Adams trying to say and do something, Edward Burtynsky trying to say and do something. Okay, but you guys haven't done that yet. Pop back over here. Self-portrait. That is what you're going to try to say and do. Starting with something like self-portrait, when it comes to trying to do something in the conceptual sense, I think is a good place to start. We all know our lives. We all know these things, places, whatever, that are relevant to your life that could hopefully sort of make up a telling and informative narrative, story. Okay, last sentence here, how these images work together as a group as opposed to how they look and feel individually. I'm interested in groups of images. Okay, how does this group of what I think is going to be 8 images sort of tell a story? Does it tell a story about a particular part of your life, a particular part of your self-portrait, or your sort of life and identity as a whole? That's going to be up to you. Since these are self-portraits, this sort of phrase here, unique to you, everyone is going to be different because everyone is different. So that's going to become an important part of this as you think about how you're going to photograph. Okay, a couple technical things. Please note if you choose to photograph indoors, which you're allowed to at this point, do not let shutter speeds go below a 60th of a second. Most of you should know how to manually meter with your cameras. At this point, you should be able to see where your shutter speed is going. Don't let it go below a 60th. When I say below, below is a 30th, a 15th, an 8th, a 4th, anything basically slower. So if you think about fast and slow as it relates to shutter speeds, a very large number, meaning sort of something 1/250th of a second, that's very, very fast. Anything below a 60th, you get into blurry images. Okay. You may also use a tripod to steady your camera if you choose. And then last but not least, or sorry, two more last things, you can adjust your ISO to 1600, 3200. Some of your cameras, and I'm speaking very generally here because all cameras are different, go to 6400, 12,000 ISO. If you don't know how to set this on your camera, please email me. I saw a few questions in the questions section. If you really need to know something, please send me an email, just because I saw a few questions that didn't necessarily get answered. So if you really need to know something, please email me. Sorry, a bunch of tangents. Last, please do not use flash. When you go inside, you should have your cameras on manually metering, so your flash shouldn't be going off. I can see flash. I know what flash looks like in a photograph. I don't want to see it. Sort of adjusting your ISO should sort of compensate for less light sort of coming into your camera. Okay. So your final grade for this project will encompass all aspects of finishing a group of images: exposure, clarity of focus, composition, content, as well as the quality of the final presentation. Images should only be manipulated in Lightroom to optimize traditional photographic elements such as contrast, exposure, and color. You should be doing the very simple developing stuff that we did in terms of using those sliders to get a more properly exposed image. Next week there's going to be one Lightroom demonstration that has to do with the adjustment brush and sort of changing particular areas of a photograph. You can use that technique, that method, when you work on your final 8 images. Okay. Now, consider the following here. How can you incorporate prior formal elements, line, shape, texture, and color to improve the overall composition? What I want to say about this is, in a nutshell, do not forget where you came from. Watch my comments over the week about projects 1 and 2, where you sort of found success in sort of using these formal elements. Do not go back to what I often sort of call, the sort of standard approach to photographing, sort of factually documenting something, something in a very sort of boring kind of way. Here's a thing, I'm going to take a picture of it. Okay. Please think about everything I sort of talked about in those line, shape, texture, and color examples, and the examples that I sort of talked about and gave you guys. These should be the sort of guiding force, or this sort of approach should be the guiding force to photographing. If you have something that you want to photograph for your self-portrait, a place, an object, whatever, think about yourself back in line, shape, texture, and color. Think of yourself back in those projects. How would you approach? How would you uniquely capture this thing? How would you use line to sort of guide a viewer through a photograph? Okay, I can't stress that enough. Often when we move to this more conceptually based approach to making something, people sort of drop everything that they've learned up to this point and sort of take boring, static photographs. Okay. Second thing, are you highlighting an overall self-portrait, meaning sort of a rounded life, a day in the life, or something very specific? You're into X, you're into Y, you're into Z, I don't know. It's up to you if you want to sort of do a broad portrait or more specific portrait about a certain portion of your life. And how do you ensure viewer interest in this personal portrait? How do you make sure, say you're into riding your horse, I don't know, how do you not take photographs of the equipment and in your horse and etc. That isn't reliant on the fact that one knows about that thing? I think the answer to that goes back to this sort of number 1 here, is make good photographs. Use these formal elements, line, shape, texture, color. If you sort of house the portrait inside formally well-composed photographs, we should be interested in those photographs. Okay, so nuts and bolts here, 50 images. These are going to be due next week. A couple people have asked me about times. Most things are going to be due at 11:59. Not that you are up or working or whatever at 11:59. It just gives people that whole day to sort of get something in, especially if you're sort of finishing some things up over the weekend. So that's going to be called first name, last name, self-portrait. And then the 8 images, you're going to do one collection of 8 images due in 2 weeks. Okay. Now, in relation to these PDFs, there's been a few questions about making PDFs. How do I make the PDFs? I just want to reiterate, this was in some videos a few weeks back. I've gotten several emails that say, oh, I don't know how to do this, or what's that? Makes me a little suspicious that we're not watching the entire video. Most things should be in there. I want to specify one thing, and I'm going to pop over to Lightroom here. I have a collection of images that I've used before. If I go to Slideshow and Export PDF, I'm going to hit Export PDF. This is sort of imagining that my project's done. I have a collection of images that I've developed, etc. Okay. When you make your PDF files, a couple things to remember, and I'll put this. I realize I didn't put it in there. When you make the group of, the larger group that's due at first, we want this quality set at 60, and we want this common sizes set at 640 by 480. Okay. So the quality at 60 and the width at 640 and the height at 480. Okay, that's when you hand in the larger group of images. So last time it was like project 1, 100 images. Okay, the Dropbox for this will be project 3, 50 images. Okay, so this is the first round when you hand in the big bunch that says, hey Dave, I did all this stuff. Okay. When you have your collection, in your case it's going to be 8 images for self-portrait, we want this quality to be bumped up to 100. And we want the size to be 1200 by 800. Okay, you've worked on these images. These are better images. These are your final images. You're going to sort of set this so that we end up with a better and sort of higher quality PDF. Okay, so just a quick review there of sort of the expectation in relation to Lightroom. Okay, at the beginning of the semester, sort of big learning curve in terms of understanding your camera, understanding what Lightroom does. At this point, and I see a lot of PDFs. I've gone through some of them, not all of them. It looks like we're having a good amount of success getting stuff into the camera, getting it out of the camera onto the computer, and then making these PDFs so we can see them. Hopefully we're going to be concentrating on this self-portrait stuff, okay, and not necessarily sort of the nuts and bolts. As I said, learning curve at the beginning can be steep, can be frustrating. The fact that this is an online course too, we have to sort of get used to how to exchange that information, etc. Hopefully we're getting used to that and sort of understanding the expectation. Again, any questions, concerns about this, please email me. Trying to think of anything else. Oh, one last thing. The discussions, you'll see like the Ansel Adams isn't necessarily a graded item. The Bertinsky is, in terms of it's going to be a written critique, a graded thing. The reason to do the Ansel Adams, for instance, is that these are going to be the basis for your photographer quizzes that we're going to have later in the semester. So this is how we know, remember, etc. What the materials in relation to a specific photographer. What I did was actually go back on the Ansel Adams discussion, and I filled in the answers as I see them for the questions that you guys completed. I took a look at yours and just sort of noted that they're done. Participation in these will also sort of be part of your general class participation grade. So I believe that's it. Email me with any questions. Again, 50 images due next week, and then the collection of 8 images due the following.